so much.
Mhm.
I really appreciate you sitting down with me. It's going to be very helpful for my project.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about your project.
So what this project is I was assigned to pick an early American artifact and look into the significance and the importance of it both in the time period and now. And being a fifth grade grandson of John Marshall, I decided to look into something with him.
Mhm.
And my father had spoken to me about the Save the Robe campaign. So it was something I knew about. It was something that was relatively local. If I was able to go try and visit the John Marshall House in person, and all the pieces just came together for that being what I researched.
Cool. So which son or daughter of John Marshall's do you send through?
I actually have two.
Oh,
I am descended from both. I spoke with Kevin Walsh the other day,
okay.
and
He knows
he asked the
everything.
same question. It's Jacqueline Ambler
Mhm.
and Edward Carrington.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Yeah. So the youngest and like the second or third son.
Mhm.
He's a second. I think Jacqueline's a
I just have a couple questions for you. It should
second.
not take anything more than, I think the other one was 9 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
So the first question I have is, who are you and what is your role at Preservation Virginia?
So I'm Jennifer Hurst-Wender, and I'm the Director of Museum Operations for Preservation Virginia. So I manage all of the historic properties that we own and operate for the public, which includes John Marshall's house and Patrick Henry's house, Scotchtown, and Bacon's Castle, and Smith's Fort, and Cape Henry Lighthouse. And Preservation Virginia also owns and operates historic Jamestown. But they have a huge staff, so I work with them, but I don't manage teams.
Mhm. Um, so that sort of leads into the next question, which is, what is the Save the Robe campaign and what does it hope to accomplish?
Great. Um, so, so the John Marshall Supreme Court robe descended through the family. So it descended down to John Marshall's daughter, Mary, and then to her two daughters, who in their retirement ended up living at the John Marshall house. And so the robe was at the house with them. Once the house turned into a historic museum, the granddaughters donated that robe to the house. And it's been on and off display for 100 years. It's made out of silk that's dyed in an iron gall. And so that iron, when exposed to moisture and oxygen, tends to actually kind of rust and it degrades the silk fabric. And so we realized that we could no longer have it on display until it was conserved. And so we took it off display about 10 years ago and have been trying to raise the money to have a conservator um, take care of it and stabilize it. So it's currently with the conservator right now, but the Save the Road project was to raise the money to have the conservator do the work and also to build a case and an exhibit for the road.
Perfect. Um, how did you first get involved with Preservation Virginia and the Save the Robe campaign?
So I've been with Preservation Virginia for 12 years, and when I first started, I was working with the education programs, but I was also a site coordinator at the John Marshall House. So I was there at John Marshall. That was where my office was, and you pretty quickly realize that when you're looking at the portraits of John Marshall, it's that robe. And there's a lot of significance to the plain black robe. I'm sure Kevin told you the story about how the robe prior to that, justices wore whatever robe they wanted,
Mhm.
red, white, yellow, it didn't matter. And John Marshall wears the black robe, and then the next session, everybody else is wearing the black robes as well. So it has a lot of significance in that it's both a scholarly black robe. It's very simple. It's not ostentatious. It's putting the Constitution before the person. So it's country before man kind of thing. The individual is not as important as the principles of governing. So that's kind of, the reason why that robe is so important. It's also the only one that exists. We don't know how many robes that John Marshall had. So I can't tell you if that's the only robe he ever had, or if he had a couple during his, very long 35 years as Chief Justice. But it's definitely one that saw some precedents through the John Marshall Court.
That perfectly leads into my next question, which is, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the robe and its significance?
What else can I
I
add?
know.
um, I mean, there's some really great anecdotes. I mean, there's the one anecdote about so Supreme Court justices would at that time also have to ride circuit, which means that John Marshall was not only presiding in the Supreme Court in D.C., but he was also traveling to Raleigh, North Carolina, for to see federal cases in Raleigh, and he was also on the Virginia Fourth Circuit. So he was seeing cases at the Capitol as well. And so there's this really great story where he goes down to Raleigh and realizes that he forgot his pants when he gets there. And he goes to all the different tailors, and nobody has any pants that will fit him. And so he writes to his wife in a letter, and says that he's going to have to go without pants on the bench. So I don't know if that's really that's just a little bit more of the history of that robe.
Hmm.
um,
It's a very fun story, at least. I haven't actually come across that one in my research on that.
yeah, it's taken directly from a letter that he's written to Polly. So you should be able to find it if you look for it.
That's really fun. What I have next is, what is happening right now with this artifact, and when do you hope it'll be finished?
Oh, that's a great question. So right now it's with the conservator is Howard Sutcliffe. He's probably the best. He has the most knowledge to work with a garment like this. His background, he's worked with Tsar Nicholas's parade uniforms. He's worked with the Vanderbilt's clothing from Biltmore. He conserved Kermit the Frog. He's worked with some medieval Egyptian royal garments. So he's pretty used to working with extremely important and delicate objects and doing conservation. And so a lot of the pieces, a lot of the parts of the robe that have essentially kind of rusted over time and the silk is degraded, those parts are going to be supported with kind of like an underlayment, um, just so that there's no further loss. And then the artifact is going to be supported in a form, so it's going to be horizontal. So when it comes back to us, rather than hanging on a mannequin, it's actually going to lay pretty flat. And so the case that's being designed to hold it is going to have a level of humidity that is going to prevent further deterioration, and it's also going to it's going to be supported. But the case itself is going to be about 7 feet by 7 feet. It's going to be enormous. We also have we are also getting patterns, exact patterns of the robe recreated, so that we can actually have replicas made. So that, I mean, everything from if somebody wants to, if a sitting judge wants to purchase the robe, replica of the robe, then they can have their own John Marshall robe. But also, we can have examples of that robe in other historical exhibits. So it's going to be on, we expect that the conservation will be wrapped up by the end of the year. And our schedule is that the exhibit at the John Marshall House is going to open in March. And we're going to have it on display at the John Marshall House for a year, and then it's going to be part of the Virginia Museum of History and Culture's 5-year. It's going to be on a 5-year loan to their brand new exhibit that's going to be opening up in 2022.
You perfectly lead off every question I have. My next question is, after the restoration is complete, where will the artifact be stored?
So
I,
yeah, the other thing is that the case is not only for display, but it's also for storage. And so we just as far as curatorial standards go, we don't want the road to be continuously exposed to light. And so there is going to be resting periods, but as far as we're concerned, the resting periods can stay in that case, just covered. So it'll be stored in the same place that it's exhibited.
Now, when it's being moved to the Virginia Museum of Culture and
History and
sorry,
culture. Yeah.
History and Culture, sorry, is it going to stay inside the same 7x7 case, and you're going to
It is.
transport that
We're
huge
working
case?
with VMHC to design a case that's going to match their new exhibits as well. Um, we had to be a little bit creative, so the board that the robe is on is flexible. So we'll be able to take the board out and fit that through like a doorway, and dismantle the case and reassemble it after a year once it's at the VMHC.
So my next question is, how successful has this campaign been? I'd known there'd been a fundraiser, but how are you going in terms of reaching your goal?
Um, we're we're about halfway there. I think that so it's kind of phased. Um, we have enough money to pay for the case and to pay for the conservation. It's we're still trying to fundraise for exhibits and for educational programs that would go around it. So yeah, we're about halfway to our goal, but the most immediate needs have been covered, which is why it's currently with the conservator.
And you even led into my last question, which is, moving forward, how does the foundation hope to educate the public about the significance of this road?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things is that we want to make sure that that's why it's not just going to stay at the Marshall House. You know, it's going to go to the VMHC. The VMHC has a lot more attendance than the Marshall House does. And so, you know, we recognize that it's a really important piece of American history, and our main goal is to make sure that we're educating the public to the significance of the road. So, having it at the VMHC is going to be a big step towards that. But you know, we love to partner. So partnering with the John Marshall Foundation, I think they just changed their name, and I know I think there's a C in it now. But Preservation Virginia, you know, we can only do as much as we can do. So partnering with educational organizations is really essential.
Well, thank you so much. That's all the questions I have for you.
All right.
I really appreciate you taking time out of your morning to speak with me.
Sure. Thanks for having such great questions. And if there's anything else that you have a question about, I know you were talking with Leah, our curator. If you want to get into some more of the minutia, she's your girl. So if you want more details about the curatorial process or the conservation process, then talk to her.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a
Good luck
good
on your
rest of your
project.
day.
All right, bye.
Bye.